write a god-awful film by an otherwise reliable director? Jack. I had Jack on my...
Lovely Bones, Benjamin Button.
Benjamin Button
No,
is the worst.
Lovely Bones is understandable if you've seen The Frighteners.
Really?
Yeah.
I've seen The Frighteners. I'm a fan of his, but there was a movie where I saw that was like, do I like Peter Jackson?
Because Peter Jackson has not made enough films to be clear on what his batting average is yet, I think. It's just that the ones that he's made that have been successful have been so wildly successful that you assume he has more films to his credit than he does.
He's a good amount of films, though.
Yeah.
He's like 8 or 9 films,
Yeah.
and like 3 of them were really long.
Yeah.
4 of them.
4 of them.
Kong.
Oh, yeah.
Forgot about Kong.
Peter Jackson, I'm not so sure that he's a great
I
director
don't know if he's
yet.
reliable. Right, exactly.
I loved Heavenly Creatures.
Yeah. But he never
I
did anything
understand
like
why
Heavenly
people
Creatures.
like Dead Alive, and I understand why people like The Frighteners, but Kong's terrible. And the Rings movies are tough. And
Well, the king of this, rest in peace, is Sidney Lumet.
Which is the worst film that he made? I mean, he made
The worst film that he made?
made some bad films.
I have not seen the Melanie Griffith film where she's a Hasidic,
an
an undercover Hasidic jewel thief or whatever
The
it is.
yeah.
one that he was making when he wrote Making Movies. Like, here's how you make a movie. Like, I'm making this with Melanie Griffith and Hasidic
yeah,
community.
that was bad timing.
Very bad.
Because he knows how to make a movie.
It's a really good book. He just
Yeah.
But it
takes
makes
you out
it-
of the book
yeah.
every time he mentions Melanie Griffith.
But that's one where he's made some of the greatest movies to me. Some of them, but
sure.
you have no idea what it's going to be next.
I find the last 20 years of his career has been pretty brutal. He did a Gloria, like you mentioned Gloria, he did a remake of it with Sharon Stone, which no one likes.
Oh
So,
Yeah, it was bad.
God, that's right.
yeah, he made a lot of. I don't really like Before the Devil Knows Your Dad. Or whatever it was called.
Oh, really? I liked that movie.
I don't like it that much.
That was great. I had a tough time with The Trouble with Charlie by
That's
Demme.
bad. Do you think that as a film nerd you would be really into it? 'Cause
Yes.
It's like Anna Karenina and Charles Aznavour and
Mhm.
French New Wave references everywhere, and it's just like unwatchable.
Well, my selection might be fighting words, but I think Godard's 1+1 Sympathy for the Devil is kind of unwatchable. And not in like an instructive intellectually. I think it's just really sloppy and bad. So, whereas his other stuff from the period.
Do you think that's the only bad one he's made, though?
from that period? I mean, usually there's other things which are kind of interesting about all the other ones, and I found there was nothing redeemable in Sympathy for the Devil. Yeah.
I really enjoyed the rehearsal footage. I kind of get what he's getting.
Like the
at.
idea was a great idea. Like on paper, so this film's going to be great. You know, it's
Yeah.
this sort of like cross-cutting with Rolling Stones in a studio where they get rated. It's this sort of allegory, and you watch like this is. It's like watching someone rehearse, like a band rehearse for like an hour and a half. You know? It's like,
I really like De Palma, and so Snake Eyes is very
that's-
painful for me.
Wow, I'd block that out of my memory.
That
Nick
is a
Cage, right?
really bad
in a
movie.
purple leisure suit. If I
In a
recall
purple
correctly.
leisure suit at a boxing match.
Yeah.
And the only other one I really want to point out,
Yeah.
because it really is the angriest I've ever been in a movie theater. Matt mentioned it, but he mentioned it passingly, and I think we need to hammer it, which is Benjamin Button is the worst movie by a director whose all of his other movies are.
I
the movie
I
made
felt
it
a
really
little.
good.
I felt like a
Good.
little abused coming out of the theater for Benjamin Button, and
A
when,
little-
and when I would hear people talk about liking it, I would get angry.
You know who liked that? Like Oprah's book club people, or like middle American.
I didn't watch it in the
like-
theater. I watched on video, and I kind of wanted to like it because everyone had hated it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go in and I'm going to be contrarian. I'm going to like this film. And I actually can't even remember
Yeah.
anything in the movie.
Yeah.
Like I have blocked it out
You,
somehow.
and you had to see it in the theater to get the angry experience. I can imagine that. I can imagine having that experience too, where you're just like, oh man, this is
You know the
boring.
other problem?
Pause.
stuck in the
Yeah.
theater. Just
But-
The theater was too warm that I saw it in, and it was a sold-out show in like one
Really?
of the big theaters.
Yeah, there were a lot of people when I saw it too,
And
and that made it more
the lady
unpleasant.
in front of me smelled like a salty ham.
Wait, what's the difference between a salty ham and a non-salty ham? Like
Country Ham versus City
Oh,
Ham.
okay.
If you had to sit behind it for 2.5 hours,
You would know the difference.
I guess 3 hours.
It's 3 hours, yeah.
And Jon Stewart, he obviously hates that movie because he keeps bringing it up in a really negative way, like out of nowhere for no reason. Just be like, "Hey, Benjamin Button," like a big Benjamin Button joke. He just clearly hated it.
Although I will say the true contrarian comment here, which is that I do not think that David Fincher is a particularly reliable director.
really?
Yeah.
I like David Fincher.
I like all his other stuff.
I don't know. When I think about the movies I like of his, I'm like, oh, that's David Fincher, obviously, right? But I don't know. There's something about him that I don't trust.
I'm
I
not
don't
crazy
trust
about him as an auteur sort
Yeah.
of star, but I think he's a really good director. Does that make sense? Like, I
Yeah.
don't necessarily like the sort of persona of David Fincher and like what he represents as this kind of like boyish kind of this sort of wunderkid kind of guy who like pushes like breaks the rules, and like that's not the part that appeals to me. But he makes really solid films that are kind of technical marvels.
Yeah.
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 But then
I didn't know that was
the
his
most
persona.
of those.
I mean, I think because of
I
Fight
always just
Club.
thought of him as
I think
incredibly
because of Fight Club.
competent. Like he just is.
I mean,
he
look
just-
at the material he chooses. I mean, he chooses stuff which is very kind of like macho
Yeah.
material. I mean, it's.
I think he's also a cold professional who likes to subvert the material. Like I think like he really subverts the Aaron Sorkin script from Social Network, which is like a kind of a stupid, bunch of lies and things that didn't really happen. But like throughout the film, like he actually visually and editorially like kind of comments on like the action throughout. So,
I love that movie. I love Social Network.
I can watch it endlessly.
As a fiction film.
Oh yeah, no, it's an amazing fiction film. Like I've watched it like 3 times.
Yeah.